This is Andi Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm joined by Matt Macklin over Zoom once again. Matt, how are you? How is life?
Good, good. Really looking forward to the fights now. A few more weeks and we'll be back at it.
Let's get straight into it, Matt, because I know you're also pressed for time this morning. How good is it to have those fights announced, as you mentioned there? Let's start with the top. Josh Warrington versus Mauricio Lara wasn't the one we was expecting. We was expecting to hear of a Kanju unification bout taking place. What was your thoughts when you saw Lara announced?
Yeah, look, it's disappointing, obviously. It's a shame that he's not getting his unification fight, but these are strange times. I can only imagine the hassle and the headaches of putting shows together. Logistically, with COVID, travel, everything else must be a nightmare. So, look, I'm just glad that we're getting the fights back up and running, even if it means that some of the fights aren't the ones we wanted, at least. And from the fighter's point of view, Josh Warrington, he just needs to get out and fight. I'm sure he's more disappointed than any of us that he's not getting the fight he wants. But to get out and still make a defense of his world title, get some ring time, shake off some rust, maybe. Listen, it could work out for a blessing because the unification might happen then April, May. I'm guessing that they're still working on that. That's what I'm hearing, and they're still looking to make that happen, sort of this side of the summer. So it is what it is. That's probably that's the saying of the whole lockdown, the whole last year. It is what it is. But no, he's look. He just needs to get back with a win, keep his name relevant, shake some ring rust. And he's still got to approach it very diligently because this is a world title shot. Your man is a contender. I don't think he's a top tier contender. It's not the fight we wanted, but still, you can. These are always potential banana skins. These type of guys, so you can't afford to look past him. But I think once this is out the way, then he'll look to get out again ASAP.
Just want to touch on one fight on that undercard. Zolfa Barrett versus Kiko Martinez. I think it's a very interesting matchup, Matt. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it's a good matchup in terms of the name of Kiko Martinez, former world champion, and he had a great career, Kiko, but I think he's well past his best now. So it's a good name on his record, his experience. I'm sure he still carries power, but I think he's certainly not the fighter that he was. But, it's probably a good fight for Zolfa Barrett as he starts to bridge make that move now from British level onto to try and get into that sort of world title contention, which, he's not there yet. But a fight like this maybe just dips his toe in the water. Like I say, I don't think Kiko Martinez shouldn't have enough left at this stage to give Zolfa too many problems. But he might show him a few tricks, might learn him. He might learn a lot from the fight. He'll gain from the experience. But yeah, no, I think Zolfa Barrett, you'd have to make him a very strong favourite in that fight now.
Moving forwards a week, we finally, hopefully, get to see David Avnissian versus Josh Kelly. When the time comes around, Matt, what are you expecting from it? Because the more I speak to people, I'm starting to hear and see people maybe edge and favour David Avnissian slightly.
Yeah, no, I understand that. He's a good fighter. It's a proper fight for the European title. It's not. There's no overwhelming favourite here. Is it 50-50? I suppose it depends on who you speak to. I think Kelly will win. I think he just got that little bit more to him. But I don't know either. It's Avnissian's a good fighter. Kelly will have to perform to the absolute best of his ability. Probably will have to perform better than we've seen him. So. But I don't know. I rate Kelly. I think he's a good fighter, and I think he should have a little bit too much for Avnissian, but we'll see.
Moving forwards, once again, you got Marchillian, Dillion versus Alexander Povetkin 2. How much pressure is there on Dillion to be successful in that fight? Because we know about his ambitions to challenge for world honours. A defeat here, it's a very long road back if he wasn't to be successful.
Yeah, exactly. Look, he got knocked out last time with an unbelievable shot against the run of play. Dillion was well on top. Had Povetkin down twice in the previous round. Looked like he was possibly on his way to stopping Povetkin. Looked like he was starting to break him down a bit. But, Povetkin's a dangerous fighter, carries that one-punch power, and he's technically good and he's crafted. He gets into positions, So, look, he landed the left uppercut, I suppose, because he was landing so many good left hooks to the body. It created the opening. But even at that, you still can't get away from the fact that Dillion was in the driver's seat. Like I say, it was against the run of play. It was one shot that knocked him out. Look, he had the immediate rematch. I don't think he's got a rematch clause for this one because this is part of that initial deal, if you know what I mean. So, if he was to lose again, it would be a difficult road back. It would be an impossible one. It certainly would be an impossible one. But he's certainly, he's out of that conversation for a while. He's not a front runner to get a world title shot where he was going into the first one. He didn't even need to do the fight. He could have sat on his mandatory ranking, let's say, and try and forced the WBC shot. But he's always stayed active, which is one thing that I've always admired about him, actually, is that he just keeps fighting, tough fight after tough fight. And I think that's probably why he's improved so much as well, because he has done that. But it would be a tough road back if he was to lose again. So it's, look, I'm sure there won't be any looking past this one. I'm not saying there was the first time, but it definitely won't be this time. All eyes are on Povetkin. And it's just an absolute must-win fight now for Dillion Whyte.
From a mental standpoint, what challenges do you think Dillion will need to overcome in the ring with Alexander? How wary do you think he will be now of the first time when Povetkin can land on him and Dillion's reminded of Povetkin's power? Mentally, how do you think Dillion will cope with that?
I think he'll be okay. I think the main thing for Dillion in this fight is he just can't afford to switch off at any point, even if he has Povetkin down 4 or 5 times. You know what I mean? In the one round, and he's there for the taking. He's still got to be a little bit cautious because even if he's going in for the killing, for the stoppage, he's got to still just be wary because, like I say, Povetkin, he's got that one punch power. So even when he's hurt, he's still dangerous. So Dillion, look, Dillion's a sort of throwback fighter, and and it wasn't like he got a sustained beating. There wasn't anything massively wrong that he did technically where you go back to the drawing board. It wasn't really about it. It was a good performance. If it had stopped him a moment before that, he said, "What a performance!" Because he boxed well, he was staying nice and tight. His straight shots were good. He was patient. And look, it was a good thing from Povetkin. It's not all what Dillion did bad. What did Dillion do bad? I mean, a tiny, slight lapse of concentration, perhaps, but also from Povetkin's point of view, you could say he set that up, as in he was throwing a lot of good left hooks to the body. So, Dillion, you naturally bring that right elbow back because you think the left hook to the body. You're anticipating the left hook to the body, which then created the gap here. And Povetkin switched it. So it was a good move from Povetkin. I think Dillion will be wary of that next time. He'll know that, he'll know that Povetkin mixes it up. So he's got to watch for the body shot, the left hook to there. But he's also got to watch out for that uppercut as well.
Fast forward to March 20th, the 4th of the show is announced. Okolie-Glowacki. Matt, is this Lawrence Coley's time now? Is he ready for the world scene?
I think so. I think he's really improved with Shane McGuigan. Okolie's one of those fighters that he's not always the most, he's not the smoothest guy to watch. He's not, he came quite late into boxing and all of a sudden was at a high level. And he's kind of developed a style that works and that, that he can cope at that level. He's a bit irky-jerky. Like I say, technically makes quite a few mistakes. He's not the smoothest to watch, but very physically very strong for a skinny guy. He's very wiry and cracks really hard. You can see he's got that power when he catches people. I'm not saying he knocks them necessarily out, but he tames them. He's got them under manners straight away. He's got their respect. So, it's Glowacki's going to be a difficult fight, but it's a world title fight. He's British Commonwealth European champion. He's won it in quick time. Okolie, like I say, very effective. He had that bit of time now with Shane McGuigan, which I think was good for him. And it takes a while when you get with a new trainer to kind of find that, to really, you can sometimes go with a new trainer and good at the start, but then to really sort of get to know each other properly, it takes a while. And I think they've got that now.
Moving forward, just once again, Matt, the final card, Conor Benn versus Samuel Vargas. What do you make of it?
I think it's a step in the right direction again. You know, Formella was experienced. He'd never been stopped. He'd only been beaten once by Sean Porter over 12 rounds on point. So that was a good, you know, a good fight in that sense. And I thought kind of Benn boxed brilliantly. He stepped up a few levels from the fight previous. You know, Samuel Vargas, we've seen him box against Amir Khan. You know, he's a tough campaigner. But again, I think that the way Connor's improving, the rate at which he's improving every time, I expect him to have enough in his arsenal. But again, it's a good learning fight. It's a fight he'll have a few problems that he'll have to work out. He'll have to make adjustments. He'll have to adapt. And they're the fights that, you know, when you come through them, make you a better fighter.
I've also got your Matchroom touch on a few other things away from the shows that were announced. Last week, we saw Sergey Kovalev tested positive from a VADA test. Just your thoughts on that? Well,
I just think there's got to be bigger consequences for all this. You know, there's too many people tested positive, and you know, the sport's going to get ruined see, boxing's mad, isn't it? Because you've got so many, it's so splintered. You know, there's no FIFA in boxing. There's a million different commissions, and they've got their own thing. So I think, look, I mean, this isn't a 30-second answer. This is probably an hour conversation, but it's got to get cleaned up. Otherwise, it's going to end up to a point where every fighter is going to be taking them because they're going to feel that if they don't take them, there's no point. A bit like in the cycling, you know, Lance Armstrong wasn't the only dirty cycler. The next 15 behind him were, you know, don't quote me on that, but you know, that type, you had that mentality type thing. So, you know, that's what will happen in boxing. If it gets to a point where you've got some guys that are at the top and they're achieving and they're blatantly, people are hearing in the industry, listen, they're on stuff and they're not failing tests or they're failing, but they're only getting a slap on the wrist, and yet they're earning millions of pounds. Other guys coming into the sport, and I think, well, if I want to compete with these guys, I've got to do the same, and that's the danger, and that is the danger. And with the consequences of getting caught are too lax, miles too lax. You know, this isn't even. I mean, this is, like I say, this is a big conversation. We ain't got time, but you know, this is as bad as it is to cheat in cycling. You're losing a race. In boxing, people are getting punched hard in the head every year. In boxing, legitimately, some people die and get, you know, life-changing injuries. It's a dangerous game, boxing. It's brutal. It's hard. You want a level playing field. You don't want someone in there on stuff, on PEDs. No, it's worse than even. It's way worse than the other sports because of that reason, because of the health factor. So, you know, everyone thinks the same thing. It has to get cleaned up, otherwise it's going to go out of hand. It's just terrible. It's terrible in any sport. It's even worse again in boxing.
It is a topic which warrants more time to touch on. Unfortunately, I know that you've got something coming up shortly, so we do have to keep moving. Just to move on to the heavyweight division, Matt. Last week, once again, Bob Arum saying that the location had been secured for the Fury AJ fight. Eddie Hearn since saying that that's not the case. When or if we do have an announcement on that bout, how much of a loss would it be for British boxing if it didn't take place over here in the UK? I spoke to Adam just before yourself, and he says he thinks it's most likely we will see that bout take place in the Middle East.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing too. But look, it's a shame. Obviously, you'd want that to be in the UK with a massive crowd at Wembley. But I'd rather the fight go ahead in the Middle East than not go ahead at all. And look, with the whole coronavirus thing, like, could they even come May and June? What will the situation be? Will it even be a case that you can get crowds in at boxing? Then we don't know the way things are going. So I think that, you know, I'd rather see it happen in the Middle East than it not happen. You know, maybe hopefully the rematch, because it'll be a 2-fight deal regardless of what happens. So I think that whatever, you know, if the first one has to be in the Middle East, then so be it. But hopefully the second one will be back here in the UK.
We're waiting to see what's going to happen with Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury if they ended up having a rematch. In the meantime, I've seen Charles Martin mentioned as a possible opponent for Deontay if he doesn't face Fury. Your thoughts on Wilder versus Martin?
I think it's just probably a little comeback fight to get his confidence back, which probably makes sense. You know, if the Fury one doesn't happen, then he comes back and I'd imagine that Wild would blast a guy like Charles Martin out early doors, but that'll do his confidence a lot of good, which he probably needs, because I think his confidence is probably shot now after the way that Fury, not that he beat him, but the manner in which he beat him.
Another fight which has been spoken about of the heavyweight division, Joyce versus Alexander Usyk. It's kind of gaining a little bit of traction, Matt. If that fight was to be made and was to go ahead, how do you think it would play out?
I think it's a good fight. I do think it's a good fight. I think Joyce will put a lot of pressure on him. Derek Chisora put a lot of pressure on Usyk. It made him uncomfortable in there. But Usyk won the fight. He navigated his way around. He outmaneuvered. He was more agile and quicker. But he was under a lot of pressure. And Joyce, I'd imagine, will be similar. I do think Usyk could outmaneuver him. I think he'll just outthink him, outmaneuver him. And he would beat him, but I think it's a good fight. It's certainly one I'd be looking forward to watching.
And then final one from me, Matt. Chris Eubank Jr. said he wants to face Triple G next. If he doesn't face Triple G, said he'd like one of Liam Williams or Cal Brook as a possible tune-up fight. Firstly, your thoughts if Eubank Jr. versus Golovkin was made, and then his comments saying that Williams or Brook would be a tune-up fight, as he put it.
Well, look, I think that Golovkin. I don't think Golovkin's got much left in the tank. I think he's been on the slide for a long, long time now. I don't think he's absolutely shot to pieces. We've seen him in his last fight. He's a great, isn't he? But he's not. He doesn't have the same energy. He doesn't have the same speed, reflex. You only have to slip a little bit, at top level. In any sport, you're talking tiny fractions that separate winning and losing. And I think Golovkin's been on the slide for quite a long time. I think he was probably on the slide before he fought Canelo the first time. So I think Eubank could probably beat him. I think he'd just be too. I think he'd just have too much energy for him now. But in terms of Liam Williams, I don't think Liam Williams is a tune-up for anyone. The way he's looked in recent times, I think Liam Williams and Eubank is a good fight, a really good fight. Cal Brook, wouldn't like to see that fight. I think Cal Brook is done. The only fight I think is left for Cal Brook maybe is the Amir Khan one, but I personally wouldn't be that interested in that fight. I'd watch it obviously, but I wouldn't be excited by it. When you get the anticipation for the build-up for the fights that you're really excited for, that wouldn't be one of those. It'd be just a money grab for both of them.
Right, Matt, we'll leave that there now. I'll leave you to get on with the rest of your day. I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you as always, and thank you, Speed to Boxing Social.
Cheers, Andy. Nice one.